Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me. It is our Friday weekend edition, and we certainly do welcome you to Point of View. This is the last day of our Truth Team Week. We'll get into that in just a minute. We have a lot to cover today. We have in studio with us, of course, Penna, Dexter, and Jeremy Dice, and we'll be talking a little bit about religious liberty. Are we going to war in Syria? Very big question this week. Of course, Mark Zuckerberg testifying in front of both the House and the Senate at different times on the issue of Facebook, and maybe even getting into the issue of faith leaders speaking out on the issue of immigration. And those are just a few of many topics we'll be addressing over the next couple of hours. So that is going to be our agenda. Penna, Dexter, as always, there's just so much to talk about. We'll do our best today.
Yeah, we have some extra topics today, so it is going to be hard to get everything in, but that's okay, because, you know, I think sometimes you have to just sit back and look at why point of view is important, how we speak to the issues that's different than the mainstream media. And I think on many of these particular topics that you have just mentioned, we do have a different sort of tweak to it, if nothing else. Sometimes we're polar opposite even from the conservative mainstream press.
We certainly are. And we also have Jeremy Dice with us, Deputy General Counsel for First Liberty. And it is just always great to have you in studio with us. You've been listening to Point of View for quite a few years, haven't you?
I have. I go way back as a Marlon Maddox baby. Not literally, but as a, you know, of course, the listenership that I go back to is in the big conversion van in the parking lot of Fort Myers Christian School, listening with my mom as we waited for my sister to get out of yet another rehearsal after school. And, you know, it's been very formative. I'm sure we'll talk more about that as we go on to what I'm doing today.
Yes. Well, and we will get into that later. But, of course, all the week we've had in studio with us Brad Fisk, and it's been a good week. And, Brad, yes, I appreciate the good work that you do to bring us back to the key points and keep us on point and prepare us for this program.
Well, you know, probably a very well-kept secret, which shouldn't be a secret about Point of View, is we are listener-supported. And many people think we have grants and this and that and money coming in from all over, but that's not the case. A good portion of our budget comes directly from our listeners, you. And a couple times a year, Kerby, we just come to you during Truth Team Week 360 degrees. We're watching your back. And so we're interested in you becoming a part of our financial team. Been a listener for a long time? Join us now, won't you? Here's the pledge line to get in on being a giver. 1-800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. We have some thank you gifts we'll talk about in the next break or two. But in the meantime, write this number down, 800-347-5151.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
But I feel it's so important that we know what's going on, and you folks do a great job of it. And I also had joined, it's the best thing to do. Like somebody said, they do $1 a day, and they don't feel that so much. At the end of the month, they've got $30 to send right off. And it's up to us citizens to pay attention and do what we can, and to pray and to help you out as much as we can.
Thank you so much for everything that everyone in that room does, and that we need this show like you wouldn't believe.
My husband and I are your supporters. We just really appreciate the show and the people you bring on.
Yes, thank you for, first of all, what you do. And I just wanted to say that your program just giving us a voice, and I want to thank you for that.
So I've been listening to y'all for years. I'm not a politico whatsoever. I believe in voting, yes. But if it weren't for y'all, I wouldn't know how to vote. I'm serious. I wouldn't know the first thing about voting, but I do now.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Brad, I might just mention that if people participate, we have a match on the table, don't we?
We do.
Match challenge.
We're very excited. Some friends of the ministry have gotten together and joined forces here, and it's a $25,000 dollar-for-dollar match challenge. Now, it's very simple. This is easy math. If you give $100, it becomes $200. You give $1 a day, that's $360 for the year. It becomes $720. $1,000 becomes $2,000. So this is the way the match works, and we need to get this cleared up as quickly as we can, and you'll help with every gift, a single gift, a monthly gift. We're not discriminating there, so every dollar you give will be matched. 800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151.
Penna, you've been around for quite some time, and you've seen how some of these individuals say, I don't know if I could support you. And we say, well, for $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 a year, you can actually support this ministry and be one of the Truth Team. And that's what we just heard from one of those listeners.
Well, excuse me, I have been around long enough to know that Point of View makes good use of the dollars that come in from our listeners. And, I think our listeners, you can't put them all in one box, but many of them want to be active. They want to make a difference. They have a heart for that. And they tell us that, they're glad we're making a difference. So in a sense, this week has been an opportunity for people to make a difference. They may not be able to go out and have a ministry or do what Jeremy does and defend religious liberty, but they can help Point of View do what we do and to broadcast the truth really across the nation. And it's so gratifying. I remember being a young mom and feeling like I couldn't really do anything to affect the culture. But you can, ladies and gentlemen, just by a donation to Point of View, or actually what really helps is if you pledge a monthly gift.
Well, again, you can certainly call us at 800-347-5151, but you can also go to the website, pointofview.net. And, Brad, we might just mention that if individuals join us at $1 a day, $30 a month,
or more,
they receive the Bible stick.
That's
and
right.
We're going to talk about the other levels, but the first level, the base level, is $1 a day, $30 a month. The Bible stick, if people haven't seen it, is just like a pack of gum, but it has, it's hard to believe this, the entire New Testament on there.
It's all preloaded.
Everything, the music, the audio, 40 different voices, and all of that is available. And that's one of the thank you gifts, the welcome gifts we just sent to you, because we appreciate those of you that can join at that lowest level, $1 a day, $30 a month.
This has been our most popular gift of all time because you can't get it in stores. You can get it through us. So again, to jump in and be a part of what's going on here, 1-800-347-5151. 800-347-5151, and we do have lines open.
I might just mention, too, that at the next level, we have what is called the Anniversary Club, and that is for $45 a month. You might say, why $45? Because we have been broadcasting for more than 45 years. Marlon Maddox started the show in 1972. And these are these little booklets. Now we have them on the screen here, but on things like Sharia law, the politicized culture, making your vote count, homosexual theology, privacy and surveillance, the Second Amendment, capitalism and socialism. And we send those to those of you, along with the Bible stick, for those of you that join at that level, $45 a month or more. We had some people joining just the other day at $50 a month, and you would qualify for those. And then you'll see on the screen as well the Century Club, $100 a month, which also we have those material plus the Amazon Echo Dots. So you can actually listen and ask it questions as well. So, Brad, we're going to a break, and so we need to hear from some of the listeners, don't we?
We do indeed. And here's the way you hook up with us. It'll take 2 to 3 minutes. You don't have to have the money in hand right now. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. And as you just mentioned a moment ago, you can go online, pointofview.net. pointofview.net and click on the Join Now button.
We're going to come back and talk about religious liberty. What's at stake? Jeremy Dys is going to help us understand what's in the court right now, what might come to the Supreme Court in the future. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
I often say on my radio program that we spend millions of dollars each year in research studies to validate what most mothers already know. This is certainly the case with the studies attempting to explain why certain people procrastinate. Andrew Centella writes about this in his book, Soon, An Overdue History of Procrastination from Leonardo and Darwin to You and Me. He explains the real reason you procrastinate in a recent article in Time magazine. People who procrastinate often postpone projects in order to have a self-serving excuse. If they wait until the last minute and do a poor job, they can always say that they could have done better if they didn't run out of time. Psychologists have a term for this practice. They call it self-handicapping. It is a strategy where people are actually sabotaging their own efforts. It is protection against the ego-crushing consequences of failure. It is worth mentioning that self-handicapping can take many other forms like substance abuse or lousy sleep habits, but it shows up most prominently when people postpone work on a project. Psychologists have found that self-handicapping shows up in other ways. For example, students are more likely to postpone studying for a test when they are told that it was a meaningful evaluation of their abilities. They did not exhibit the same behavior if they were told the test was meaningless and was being taken only for fun. Consider this contrast. When the test counted, students procrastinated. When it didn't count, they diligently prepared. Procrastination appeals to some because it provides a way of controlling life that seems too chaotic and unmanageable, but it's helpful to know that often procrastination adds to the chaos. It is better to buckle down and get started on the project. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For more information about issues covered on Viewpoints, visit pointofview.net. Pointofview.net. Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Hi, this is Lee Strobel, author of The Case for Christ and my new book, The Case for Miracles. You know, one of the best ways that we can grow in our ability to understand why we believe what we believe is to get an ongoing dose of God's truth into our lives. And one of the best ways of all to do that, Kerby Anderson does a tremendous job of giving us a regular diet of evidence, of logic, of God's truth from His Word, so that we can continue to do what 1 Peter 3:15 tells us, to always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks us to give the reason for the hope that we have, and to do it gently and with respect. So I am a huge fan of Kerby. I'm a huge fan of Point of View. I know that you probably are as well. That's why you're listening, and I hope you'll get behind them, support them, so that this ministry can continue on into the future and flourish even more next year than this year.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Lee Strobel was on with us yesterday, and Brad, as you well know, as we came to the end of the interview, so wait a minute, I want to actually pledge $1,000.
That's right.
And so I'm not asking you to do anything I'm not going to do. So Lee and Leslie pledged $1,000 yesterday, and so they will put that on their credit card and just help us reach that match that we had yesterday.
And it became $2,000 because of that match.
Yeah.
And there is a match on the table, and a few people have taken quick advantage of it. Andrea, thank you for your $120. That becomes $240, by the way. Checking in from Dallas online. And Carolyn with a gift. Thank you so much from Tucson, Arizona. And another $100 gift, and they want to get in on the match, they said. And from Kansas. So thank you. So, hey, this is great. We are off to a great start.
I might just mention, even though we're only broadcasting this hour on our local station, I've seen all sorts of gifts coming in because people go on Facebook Live or they go to our feed. And so we've been getting gifts this hour, this noontime hour,
right.
not just from Dallas, but from North Carolina, as you said, Kansas, one from Alaska, because people can be listening as well. Penna, that's just the wonder of all of Christian radio and all these new technologies that have been developed ever since Marlon started this program more than 45 years ago.
Yes, I mean, we love the live listeners, but if people want to listen to us later, they can do that too because of our online presence. You know, when I look at point of view, I think we cover a lot of topics, but I think one of the most important topics, the one that kind of pulls at the heartstrings of our listeners, especially on Fridays, we love to talk about all the cases that First Liberty Institute is involved in. And we've got Jeremy Dyes here to do that. So, you know, I heard that there are 6, Jeremy, on their way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, it could be that at this very moment, the Supreme Court justices are sitting in that central courtroom or that conference room that nobody's allowed to go into, and the most junior member of the bench has to open the door if people knock on it all. So it's a very kind of secretive and very stayed with tradition that is there. But they're conferencing today on a variety of petitions, including one of ours that's scheduled for today, and that's the case of Mary Ann Sauce. And I know you two are familiar with that case. Mary Ann lived alone in Kansas. And late one night, someone knocked on her door. She couldn't see out, so she didn't open it. And it turns out that they came back. It was the police. And the police were there. They didn't say exactly why, but they made it clear they wanted to get inside the house. She happened to have a pocket Constitution sitting beside her front desk, her front door, and she held up and said, "This says that I don't have to let you in my house." Right. And and the police said, "It doesn't apply here. It's just a piece of paper."
Oops.
They talked their way inside the house, and they're in there for about an hour. At one point, they continue to kind of berate and harass her and treat her more than a little bit roughly. And they kept on saying, "You better get yourself ready because you're going to jail tonight." Well, one of the officers leaves, goes outside the room. The other one stays there and is looking through his code book, figuring out what book they're going to throw at her to charge her with to take her to jail. She's scared. She says, "Do you mind if I get down on my knees and pray?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, whatever. Do whatever you want." So she hits her knees in silent prayer, literally face on the ground, praying that, maybe she'd be spared from having to go to jail that night. The other officer comes back in, finds her there on the ground praying, and he goes, "What is she doing?" And the other officer kind of chuckles and says, "Yeah, she's praying." The officer orders her to get up, tells her, you can't pray here. You got to stop praying. And that would have been fine if the next question was, "What's your address? What's your social security number?" The information that they need in order to book her. But it's not. He continues to say things like, "Nobody likes you here. You should move back to where you came from. Get out of this area, blah, blah, blah." And continues to give her a hard time. 20 minutes later, they finally leave. They cite her with a ticket. Thankfully, they didn't take her to jail, but they cite her with a ticket and explain that they were there on a noise complaint, that they had burst into this room over a noise complaint, harassed this elderly woman for about an hour over a noise complaint. And only on the way out, did they say, "Hey, by the way, turn your radio down." Now, that's absurd that even happened. But for a court to say, the federal district court, she filed a lawsuit by herself initially, and the federal district court at the motion to dismiss stage said, "Look, she may have had some offense for her religion, but to say that it arises to a substantial burden is a hard case to make," the court says. Well, I tend to think that if an armed officer of the law is going to tell me to stop praying in the courtesy of my own home, I think that's a rather substantial burden. So we took the case to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals on a kind of novel doctrine called qualified immunity. It's an unsettled area of the law right now. And the 10th Circuit said, "Look, if these facts are in fact true, they're incredibly egregious, but, we're not going to be able to make new law on this. This has got to go to the Supreme Court for them to do it." And so right now the Supreme Court is considering whether or not they want to take that case. So our hope is that come Monday morning we find out that either they're going to reverse this case and say, "Go back and do this all again," or they're going to say, "Yeah, let's have some arguments about this for next term."
Brad, you can't pray in your own house.
That's just incredibly stupid. I mean, it's wrong. It's just flat out wrong. Where, common sense seems to just be right out the window. That's just nuts. It really is. I hear stuff like that and it just drives me crazy. Now, I'm curious, can the Supreme Court simply dismiss the entire thing and make it go away?
Well, they could say they could do something very simple, which is what we have asked them to do in part. They said, "Look, if you're not going to grant the whole case and have us come up and argue the whole thing out, just reverse it and tell us to do it again. There's a fancy legal term for it I won't go into, but tell everybody to go back and try this again. Now, you got it wrong the first time. Do it right this time. Remember, this was at the motion to dismiss stage when you have to take all the facts that she's pled as completely true. And so they've been a little bit on the what I call the short shrift side of things here. But the premise is true here, and what we're seeing across the country is this growing increase of threat to religious liberty. So much so that now we have officers that are willing to harass an elderly woman who lives by herself, a rape survivor, cancer survivor, and tell her that she can't pray in her own home. It used to be that they just say you can't pray at school. Now you can't pray apparently inside your own home.
That's crazy. That's absolutely nuts.
Well, again, doesn't that make the case for why we bring these kind of programs to you every single day in these kind of cases?
It does indeed. And, again, I'm going to remind you the phone number. If you're as ticked off as I am, you need to call and pledge. 1-800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. We got to stand with you guys and you with us.
Well, look, and it's a relationship that we value here as well, because how do we get this information out to the rest of the world? Yeah, we can file it in court. We can talk to 3 judges at the 10th Circuit. But really, we need to come here to talk to the literally hundreds of thousands of people that have radios turned on across this country right now listening to the show, and the millions more that may tune in online. So I would join you to tell folks to go to 800-347-5151 and make the pledge here, because the more that Point of View succeeds, the more able we are to tell people about their religious liberty and how to defend it.
Yes.
When you look at some of these issues, some people might ask, if you're a regular Point of View listener, you probably already know the answer, but why is this important? For instance, why is it important that we preserve the right to have a cross, like the Bladensburg Cross in Maryland, that honors World War I veterans? Why is that important that we protect the rights of Mary Ann in her home? I mean, how does this affect the average person sitting at home listening to Point of View?
Because we forget things we do not see, and we lose freedom when we chip away at small things. The Bladensburg World War I Veterans Memorial is a great example of that. That's a gravestone, that one mother called it, of 49 men who died defending freedom in World War I. It has stood at the door of Washington, D.C. since the early 1920s. 1917 is when it got started. 1925, I think, is when it was finally installed. And suddenly someone who's driven by it every single day, by the way, they were driving on the National Defense Highway, which is itself a World War I monument. They finally discovered that this gravestone, this memorial peace cross, as they call it there locally, that is somehow offensive. Now, we're told that if we see something pornographic on a billboard, we need to avert our eyes and don't be such a prude on such things. But apparently, a grown man can't drive by a gravestone to 49 men from Prince George's County without finding himself so offended that they need to chop the arms off of this memorial or raise it down to the ground itself.
Yeah. Again, we talked about that, Brad. Chop off the arms of the cross.
Yeah, that's
now, that
crazy.
would be offensive to us.
That's This is nuts. Now, if there's 7 of you, just 7 listening right now that haven't pledged yet and become part of the Truth Team, there's a good example of what we're going to continue to be, that voice for this crazy stuff that's going on that we just don't hear about, like you said, any other way. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Won't you stand with us financially?
Aren't you concerned about our future? Again, if these cases come down in the right way, it will be much better for your children and grandchildren. What about if it comes down the other way? We'll talk more about that. But we need to hear from you. 800-347-5151 or go to pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
You know the need. Change is within reach. Reach out and seize the moment. As former White House official Gary Bauer can say from experience, what we do here, you and Point of View, makes a difference.
In my time in government, when Point of View provided people with a phone number or an address or a way to communicate to the powerful people here in Washington, D.C., the effect was incredible, and it was immediate.
You can create real and lasting change. For a few more hours, we have a $25,000 challenge. Your commitment to the Truth Team, whatever amount, will be doubled up to that number. Stretch a bit. Make change happen.
Either people of faith will take action and defend their values, or the playing field's going to be left to those that have quite a different agenda.
Get in the game before time runs out. Call 800-347-5151 or visit pointofview.net/team. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again, is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again, if you would like to help us out today, the pledge line number is 800-347-5151. We have in studio with us today, of course, Brad Fisk, who's been with us all week, Penna Dexter, Jeremy Dice, and Brad, how we doing on all of this?
Hey, we're making some progress thanks to those of you who are contacting us at 800-347-5151. And remember about the Bible stick. That's a gift of $1 a day or more. You know, that's such an easy entry-level kind of level to come in as a donor. $360 for the year. You can break it down any way you want, $30 a month. But that Bible stick from Faith Comes by Hearing is an awesome product, and it's the Word of God, word for word, music, sound effects. It's very easy to listen to. The ESV version, by the way, which is the biggest selling one right now. So give us a call, won't you, and join the Truth Team at 1-800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or pointofview.net.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
And express my gratitude for the awesome work that you guys have done. I've been listening for about 6 months now, and it's just been something I hadn't hardly missed. Thank you for giving me my daily dose of truth with a biblical worldview. I'd just like to encourage anyone listening that's inspired by Point of View to give what they can. I'm a California millennial and Christian, and I now can say I support Point of View.
I've been listening to Point of View regularly for the past year and a half, and I have to say it's been my favorite radio program.
But I'm going to double what I'm sending to you guys because thanks to you, you're keeping this all up to speed.
I'm just so thankful for you, Kerby, and for you continuing in this ministry, and for people whom God has lifted up in these last days. I just want to thank you and just ask that God would bless you.
Thank you, Kerby. I really appreciate your program. You cover a lot of issues that a lot of us think about, I'm sure.
I appreciate Point of View. You've been great and wonderful. A lot of information, and I really appreciate all your work you do.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Penna Dexter with me, as well as Jeremy Dice. Of course, Brad's been with us all week, and we were talking about some of these religious liberty issues. And in just a minute, after we talk about some of the religious liberty issues, I want to hear from Susan, because she had a really great testimony about the impact of Point of View. But I hear of individuals, Brad, talking about you really keep us up to date on these issues.
That's right.
And it's kind of what we were talking about. Jeremy and all sorts of other people at First Liberty, Kelly Shackelford and the rest, can be involved in all this. But if you don't know that there are people fighting for your rights, and you don't know what to do if your rights have been violated, how are you going to be effective? That's one of the things we're trying to do, educate and empower people to make a difference.
We are, and then your gift helps us do that. We're unabashedly coming to you and saying, join the Truth Team, won't you? 1-800-347-5151.
Penna, we've got a couple of other religious liberty issues to talk about, don't we?
Well, we were talking a minute ago about the Bladensburg cross, this huge cross that is at risk of either being torn down or having the arms cut off because it's so offensive. And, you know, I think back to the fact that there was another cross. It was the Mojave Desert Cross out in California that was upheld at the U.S. Supreme Court level. It was First Liberty Institute case for years. You worked on that case, Jeremy, and I'm thinking of another issue that may be on its way to the Supreme Court, too, and that is this idea of prayers before, for instance, maybe a city council meeting or a commissioners meeting in a locality or a county. And there was a case that went to the Supreme Court. It was a Town of Greece case that upheld those rights. But now you have two cases that are kind of have been decided by circuit courts both ways, for and against. And so we have to relitigate this again?
Well, the only correction I have to make to you, Penna, is that this will be the third time we'll have to relitigate this at the Supreme Court of the United States, because back in the 1980s, we had the case with called Marsh versus Chambers that challenged the right of a chaplain at the, I think it was Nebraska legislature, to be able to open its meetings with prayer, just like Congress has done since before we were actually a nation. Just like the Supreme Court does it with the same thing. God save this honorable court. It's a short prayer before they begin their arguments on things. And you're right. A couple years ago, I think it was 2013, Town of Greece versus Galloway came down and upheld the right for individual citizens to come in and provide a prayer. And so this is an important part of lending gravity to this situation, of lending some seriousness to this proceeding, to help people concentrate and focus on what the Supreme Court said, the fractious business of governing, to have that moment to pause and consider. Well, you're right. We've got two different circuits now. One is the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers Maryland and Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. We've got another one in the Sixth Circuit, which covers Michigan and on downwards to Ohio and some other states. And those two en banc courts, now it's a fancy word that means that all the judges on the court, both of those courts sitting en banc, came to completely opposite conclusions. And so we're going to have to come to the Supreme Court again to say, look, there's a split amongst the circuits now, and it falls to these 9 justices to interpret what the law actually is on this topic. Do these lawmakers, as individual lawmakers, have the ability, once they become elected, to offer a legislative prayer or not? That's going to be the question that's going to go before the Supreme Court of the United States. It's there. We're just waiting for the Supreme Court to decide whether or not they're going to resolve that circuit split next term. I expect that they will, but we'll have to wait and see if they will do so. But that's the next challenge here. And so we've got to continue to get that word out.
And again, if you could bring back James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, all these individuals from the grave, which we can't, but if you could, they would just say, I can't even believe we're having this conversation, because whether it's James Madison, who established the chaplaincy, or whether it's even Benjamin Franklin, who quite candidly could not sign the doctrinal statement of most of our churches, all of them saw the value of prayer. But here, this is a controversial issue and just an illustration, again, Brad, for why we encourage people to support us right here at Point of View.
It is. And again, we're just inviting you to come and be a part of the team. By the way, we have a $25,000 match on the table. A tiny little piece of that's been carved off so far. There's plenty left for you. Every gift you give, monthly or single, you will the money will be doubled because of some friends of the ministry. So we got to get that cleared up as quick as we can. So give us a call, 800-347-5151.
I thought you would maybe like to hear from Susan, who talks about the impact that Point of View has had in her life.
Well, at the time I had a 5-year-old daughter, and my husband and I were looking into private Christian schools. And we weren't really happy with what we were finding out there. And they were very costly, and I preferred to be a stay-at-home mom. And at the time, I had a home daycare. And I thought, I don't want to stay home and take care of other people's children and send my daughter off to school. So I was an avid Point of View listener when I became a Christian. And one day, Marlene was talking about homeschooling. And it I kind of perked up and listened, because it was kind of a new concept at the time. And the more I listened, the more I was convinced that that's what the Lord would have us do. I had an older son in the public school system and had not had a good experience in a lot of ways with that. So when I talked to my husband about what I heard on Marlene Maddox, he was a little skeptical. And then I heard about a Greg Harris homeschool workshop. And I talked him into going to that with me. And because he thought these homeschoolers were surely just from the hippie days, a bunch of rebels. So I took him to this workshop. And the more we heard Greg Harris talk on the topic of homeschooling and the curriculum that was already out there that we could purchase, and in Texas it was legal to homeschool. And the more and more we were convinced, and the Lord showed my husband that was the way he would have us go with our daughter. And we had this sweet little girl, and we didn't want her corrupted by the world. And I just wasn't ready to send her out there with the wolves, so to speak. And she's homeschooling her 3 children, by the way.
And multi-generational. Penna, Dexter used to listen to the program before you actually were the co-host on this program. You've homeschooled your kids, and of course you know Susan, so love to get your comments.
Well, I would say that I was a homeschooling mom, and I remember the encouragement that I got from Point of View and Marlene Maddox. I remember a big fight that we had at the national level for the right of parents to homeschool their kids if they weren't credentialed teachers. And the calls from the programming that we did on that poured into congressmen's offices, and really, I think, won the day, because people didn't know about that attack against homeschooling. So there's a time where Point of View made really the case for generations to come. And, Marlon Maddox, who started this program, he didn't know about homeschooling. He thought it was a little strange until he started bringing guests on about it, and he did a 180 and was just a great booster for homeschooling. And I think that's been something that's helped believers ever since that time and is still helping them.
I would just say for those of you that maybe are homeschoolers, and we've got another homeschooler here, right? Brad, I'd love to hear from you right now. 800-347-5151. Of course, the website is pointofview.net. We have this $25,000 match on the table.
Yeah.
That means your gift of $100 becomes $200, $30 a month, $360 a year becomes $720. 800-347-5151.
Let's go.
We'll be right back.
Every dollar doubled.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control has declared April STD Awareness Month. They cite the latest data to point out that sexually transmitted diseases are at record levels and that young people, for behavioral and biological reasons, are at high risk of contracting STDs. The CDC's plan of action is talk, test, and treat. Okay, but how about let's tell kids that sexual promiscuity can be dangerous, even lethal? Be clear with them that they should practice restraint to save their health and their lives and the lives of others. Government bodies, including most public schools, simply don't want to be this blunt. Talk, test, and treat is part of the reason we've had a 5% rise in chlamydia from 2015 to 2016, a 10% rise in gonorrhea, and an 18% rise in syphilis. Yet governments refuse to hold abstinence as the standard. In honor of STD Awareness Month, a Stamford, Connecticut toy company called Giant Microbes is, quote, rebranding STDs as charming and cuddly with a line of stuffed animals based on venereal diseases. Andrew Klein, the owner of Giant Microbes, says this is to break the stigma surrounding STDs. Stigma? What stigma? Planned Parenthood, which among other distinctions is the nation's largest abortion provider, has succeeded in obliterating any stigma around premarital sex and its consequences. A Pennsylvania branch of Planned Parenthood tweeted, "We need a Disney princess who's had an abortion." And yet schools inexplicably bring in Planned Parenthood and its curricula to teach sex ed to kids. Currently, the organization, with the cooperation of groups like the ACLU and the Human Rights Campaign, is working to get model legislation passed that pushes yet another graphic sex ed curriculum into classrooms around the nation. This one will be taught without parents' knowledge or consent. On April 23rd, some parents are keeping their kids home from school to protest. To find out about it, go to sexedsitout.com. For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now. Dr. Sean McDowell.
We clearly live in difficult times, especially for Christians. Sometimes it feels like the culture is just turning against us quickly. We need to speak up with compassion, but we need to speak up with truth in the way that Jesus did. That's one reason why I'm a big fan of Point of View, is they're dealing with cutting-edge, controversial subjects that the church sometimes doesn't want to deal with. But they do their homework, they do it informed, they also do it in a way that's practical so we understand the issues but know what we can do about them. Ministries like Point of View can only survive with the help of listeners. One of the reasons I think Point of View is so valuable is because they just deal with the cutting issues of the day in a manner that's informed, in a manner that's gracious, and in a manner that's making a difference. Point of View is standing up for truth, and they need your help.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Dr. Sean McDowell, and, Brad, you and I have known Sean since he was a kid, so it's still hard to say Dr. Sean McDowell, but he did get his Ph.D. and published this book on the fate of the apostles, perhaps one of the best analysis of what happened to the apostles after the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and all but one died martyrs' deaths, and he went through and documented that in ways that no one has ever done before. So, again, appreciate his good work and his kind comments about this. But we've seen individuals grow. We talk about you're paying it forward. Earlier in this week, we heard from Michelle Bachman listening to this program when she was first listening at 19 years of age. Later, even before she ran for the legislature, Penna, Dexter, and I did an interview with this up-and-coming individual who then, of course, ran for not only the legislature, but then later for Congress and ran for the presidency. So we've seen the growth that has taken place in these individuals. And a little bit later, we're going to hear from Jeremy, his story, which is, again, just another one example of the impact of Point of View that's had over these 45-plus years.
Well, you're illustrating something we've been saying all week, and that is your gift that you give today really can't do much about yesterday. Can't really do much about today, but it can do a whole lot for the future because you're giving for the future. You're paying it forward because we are coming up on battles. Everybody in this room, I know, would agree. We don't know where they're all going to be, but they're going to be there. It's promised. So are we going to be ready? Are we going to have our armor on? Speaking of armor, we have a Bible stick that we're giving as a gift to anybody who pledges $1 a day or more. And it could be by the month. It could be a single gift. But anything that's more than $360, you're going to receive, or it's $360 or more, you're going to receive a Bible stick. And let's give a little listen to what this sounds like.
Again, 2 Corinthians 9:7.
Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. As it is written, He has distributed freely. He has given to the poor.
Gives you a little bit of an idea, and that's 2 Corinthians 9:7 and following. And this week we've played 1 Peter 3:15 and John 8:28 and Matthew 6 and Luke 6 and a number of others. And sometimes, of course, you have multiple voices, 40 different voices in all, music and other resources. And you might say, well, this would be nice, but I don't know that I need one. But you probably know somebody that would benefit.
I bet you do.
Probably
college
a kid
students.
going off to college or young people that need to hear God's word. And it's, again, not a paraphrase. It's a word-for-word translation of the ESV, right?
That's right. Exactly right. And it's available to you. This has been the most popular welcome gift that we've ever had for our Truth Team. So we're inviting you to join, and we'd like to say thank you with the Bible stick. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
Penna, one of the things we might talk about is education. We just a minute ago heard from Susan. She was talking about homeschooling. You have some facts and figures here about what's happening in education here in America.
Well, when you think about Point of View and just the things that have been accomplished through this ministry, education was a key issue. And it's funny how many of the key issues really, they have different nuances to them, but they really don't change. And because, we had problems in our educational system, the federal government thought back during Jimmy Carter that it needed to get involved, and they developed the Department of Education. And there was a study that came out this week, and every couple of years, the NAEP, National Association of Educational Progress, tests kids in 4th and 8th grades. And this is supposed to be sort of the national report card on education. And the results show that in most cases, our results have dropped. I think there was one area where they improved in one set of cohort of students, but it was barely, just a slight improvement. So what it shows is all the money and the programs that we have spent in trying to have a federal role in education. And with that comes federal mandates in areas that should really be the province of the local, county, or state bodies. They're supposed to be controlling education. And, the federal role in education is usually more of an indoctrination role than it is an academic role. We're finding that out across the board. And so it's just very interesting. And I don't think that a lot of Americans really know that. They sometimes sense, if they're believers, that there's something wrong in the public schools. But to really know what it is and where it is and what they can do about it, Point of View has always delved deeply into that issue.
Jeremy, I might come to you for just a minute because you have some boys that are being educated right now. Many of us around the table have grandchildren about the age of your kids, but you have some that are still at that public school level. But what have you decided in terms of education?
Well, I think largely because of my background of growing up in a Christian school and then listening to programs like these, we decided that the public schools is not going to work for us. We want to make sure that we have the opportunity to sit there and see those aha moments when those kids come through and learn about things. And more importantly, we want them to sit around the kitchen table like I used to do with my family and discuss the matters of the day. And so my family has elected to homeschool our kids as well. And we've just delighted. In fact, I got to go home tonight and proof my kids on a topic. We do classical conversation. So I get to hear all the memory work that they've done throughout this entire year as a little challenge for them. And I'm telling you, it's one of the most delightful days of my life, of my year, because I get to hear all the great progress that these young men have made. And it's exciting for me to watch these boys grow. I have all 4 boys, so that's why I'm saying men, but they're great young men that are learning to become greater men.
Yeah. Brad, that's, again, another aspect of a Point of View that we are encouraging you to really understand that the primary responsibility for the education of your children is on the parents and even the grandparents. So we have grandparents around the table here now. You got 21 grandchildren, right?
21.
You're a little ahead of
2 of the way.
Yeah, even ahead of Penna, although she's been doing very well in their family as well. So again, that's something that we just need to talk about, how, again, we are trying to be an encouragement to you to take that responsibility as a parent to educate your children and prepare them for the next generation.
One of the things we hear all the time is how practical this program is. It meets needs right where people live day in and day out. And the other thing that we hear a lot is the topics that we cover, way bigger list than just about any other talk show anywhere. And that's on purpose. That's deliberate, because we really believe that's what God has called us to do, is to tell the truth about all things in a biblical worldview context. That's what Point of View is all about. And we're asking you to join us during Truth Team Week. This is the final day, you guys. Don't wait for next Monday because we're done today with Truth Team. 800-347-5151. Would there be 7 of you right now to give us a call at 800-347-5151 and say, I want to stand with you and I don't want to compromise the Word of God?
Again, 800-347-5151. Of course, you can also go online and go to pointofview.net. And some of you may want to even leave some of your comments at Facebook Live. I've noticed we have some of those over there. But when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about Syria. We're going to talk about Facebook. We're going to talk about immigration and so many other topics. But we also want to spend some time challenging you to do what you can to support this ministry. 800-347-5151. We'll be right back.
You know the need. Change is within reach. Reach out and seize the moment. As former White House official Gary Bauer can say from experience, what we do here, you and Point of View, makes a difference.
In my time in government, when Point of View provided people with a phone number or an address or a way to communicate to the powerful people here in Washington, D.C., the effect was incredible, and it was immediate.
You can create real and lasting change. For a few more hours, we have a $25,000 challenge. Your commitment to the Truth Team, whatever amount, will be doubled up to that number. Stretch a bit. Make change happen.
Either people of faith will take action and defend their values, or the playing field's going to be left to those that have quite a different agenda.
Get in the game before time runs out. Call 800-347-5151 or visit pointofview.net/team. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I've recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because
of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of view, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. Each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me. It is our weekend edition, and we certainly do welcome your phone calls to our pledge line. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute. It is certainly a great opportunity for you to participate with us, and it's part of our Truth Team Week. In studio with me all week have been, of course, Brad Fisk, as well as Penna, Dexter, and Jeremy Dice, who's the Deputy General Counsel for First Liberty. Penna, we're going to talk about in the next 2 hours, we'll get into the issue of Syria. Are we going to go to war there? We even have a very good article on how should Christians think about this in terms of the just war theory. Mark Zuckerberg appeared before the Congress and talked about Facebook, both in the House and the Senate. And then we have a section on faith leaders and immigration. How do Christians think about immigration? Which is kind of the theme. We look at these issues. We post these very good articles for you to read. And then we talk about how to apply a biblical perspective on every one of those topics.
Yeah, and over the years, the general issues don't seem to change, but the specifics of them do. So when you think of Syria, we've always talked about foreign involvements and freedom around the world, and also the rights and the persecution of believers, and those are all sort of themes that fit into this whole question of, do we go into Syria and what's happening there? And just same with really all the other issues that we talk about. The sanctity of human life has always been a theme, and the institution of the family and religious liberty. So all of those we'll be discussing today on Point of View.
And those are issues that have surfaced this week. We've talked about religious liberty quite a bit. We've talked about sanctity of human life. They do change a little bit because we have one president sends out tweets all the time that relate to Syria. We never had that before, so it is a little different. But yes, we'll get into all those details. But Brad, let's just remind our listeners, we have come to the last day.
We have.
By the way, my commentary today turns out is on procrastination. They've done all these research on why people procrastinate, so that may be a little more appropriate because we may have some listeners been listening all week and going, well, I'm just going to get to that. Well, if you're going to get to it, you better get to it today, because we're down to the last 2 hours, less than 2 hours.
We are.
And we have, as I understand, a match on the table.
We do. I'll tell you about the match in a minute, but first I want to make sure you understand what we're doing. We have a thing called Truth Team 360, and a couple times a year we come to you and say, oh, by the way, we are listener-supported Christian radio, and we absolutely must have the income to do what we do and do more of it and do it better. And your gift will make that happen at 800-347-5151. Now, some friends of the ministry got together and they said, you know what? We want to encourage listeners to give, and we have a match challenge on the table of $25,000. Now, hear me. Listen for a quick moment. This is very important. That money is at risk. There is a condition attached to that $25,000. If we do not make that match today, whatever's remaining goes away. It doesn't come back. So I don't know about you, but I would not want to give away any portion of a $25,000 gift. So we're asking you to give your best gift at 800-347-5151. And you know what? It's a toll-free number, and you can also give online. Pointofview.net, pointofview.net. 800-347-5151. And Kerby, we really want to get this cleared up this hour.
Yes, we
Could
do.
you help us get to the top of the hour and have this done? 800-347-5151.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Point of View is a part of my daily life, and I know of no other radio program that helps its listeners to develop, articulate, and then defend a biblical worldview as successfully as yours does. For those reasons, I consider it an honor to be able to support Point of View financially, and I would encourage all of your listeners, both young and old, to prayerfully consider doing the same.
I just turned your program on, and I want to just let you know I was working in an abortion clinic when abortion first became legal, and I thought I was helping women. And the Lord showed me in a very powerful way, as He removed the veil from me, what exactly I've been involved in. And I am proof of forgiveness. And I want to just let you know how much I appreciate just getting the truth out.
I really appreciate your program. I don't get to listen to it every day because I have to work, but it's a really a blessing to me and to all of us.
You know, my husband and I take so many extra precautions to guard our children, and it is a huge effort on the part of Christian parents to do that. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
I just appreciate all you guys do. I mean, I learned so much, and it's amazing what you teach that I say to other people, and they look at me like, where did you hear that? So I appreciate you guys. So thank you for all you do.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
One of the things I heard is an individual that worked in an abortion clinic and saw the light.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Earlier in the week, we actually played a little piece by Jim McKee, who started what at that time was called the Crisis Pregnancy Center of Dallas. Later was called the Dallas Pregnancy Resource Center, where my wife and daughter worked for a while. Now it's called Thrive. And so we've seen the legacy over decades, Penna, Dexter, of individuals that were influenced by Marlon Maddox or by you or by me and are still making an impact. And so gifts in the past have made an impact in the present. Your gift, in a sense, is paying it forward to those individuals in the future.
I think the life issue is one issue where education and science and just the dedication of the people in the pro-life movement and pregnancy centers have really brought us to a point where we're actually, the nation is turning against abortion. And certainly the millennial generation is much more pro-life than our baby boomer generation. And so it's good to see that in that area, not that we've won the war, but we're winning battles and we're winning the hearts and minds of Americans on that issue.
The younger you are, Jeremy, the more likely you are to be pro-life. And that's not exactly what Planned Parenthood expected, right?
I guess so. Yeah, no, I think we're seeing a shift in the generations here right now from those who have let's say, led the way to create what they call abortion rights or whatever they're calling it these days. But no, the youngest generation right now seems to be taking that back and saying, no, we recognize that there are millions, literally millions of our generation that are not here, not around this table at all. And we don't want to see that for future generations ourselves. And so I think we should all remain hopeful that there is an end in sight to the scourge of abortion someday down the road. But that's not going to come on its own. It's going to take you and I sitting around the table talking to our kids, reminding one another of the importance of the sanctity of human life.
Well, we need to hear from some of you because, as we've just pointed out, we are listener-supported. We're at the very last day. You probably have been listening for some time and said, you know, I really have been meaning to make that phone call. Well, the last day is here. The last few hours are here, and we have a $25,000 match on the table.
Let me explain how that works. If you give $1,000, it becomes $2,000. Now, monthly gifts are especially strategic because we count the entire year. Mm-hmm. You give $360 for the year to be a Truth Team member at $1 a day. It actually becomes $720. So it's really a strategic time to give during this match challenge. We'd love to clear it up by the top of the hour, but we can't do this alone. We need your help. 800-347-5151. Lines are open right now at 800-347-5151. Let's have 9 of you give us a call right now.
We certainly want to hear from each one of you. We have been encouraging you to give. Now is your time to give. 800-347-5151. Or, of course, you can go to the website, pointofview.net. Need to hear from you. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
I often say on my radio program that we spend millions of dollars each year in research studies to validate what most mothers already know. This is certainly the case with the studies attempting to explain why certain people procrastinate. Andrew Santella writes about this in his book, Soon, An Overdue History of Procrastination from Leonardo and Darwin to You and Me. He explains the real reason you procrastinate in a recent article in Time magazine. People who procrastinate often postpone projects in order to have a self-serving excuse. If they wait until the last minute and do a poor job, they can always say that they could have done better if they didn't run out of time. Psychologists have a term for this practice. They call it self-handicapping. It is a strategy where people are actually sabotaging their own efforts. It is protection against the ego-crushing consequences of failure. It is worth mentioning that self-handicapping can take many other forms, like substance abuse or lousy sleep habits, but it shows up most prominently when people postpone work on a project. Psychologists have found that self-handicapping shows up in other ways. For example, students are more likely to postpone studying for a test when they are told that it was a meaningful evaluation of their abilities. They did not exhibit the same behavior if they were told the test was meaningless and was being taken only for fun. Consider this contrast. When the test counted, students procrastinated. When it didn't count, they diligently prepared. Procrastination appeals to some because it provides a way of controlling life that seems too chaotic and unmanageable, but it's helpful to know that often procrastination adds to the chaos. It is better to buckle down and get started on the project. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For more information about issues covered on Viewpoints, visit pointofview.net. Pointofview.net. Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now. Rebecca Hagelin.
Point of View provides a combination of what is truly happening in public policy in the culture around the country and provides a worldview from which to judge what the believer should do about the culture and public policy. It's a critical source of information, inspiration, and also what possible action steps might be.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Penna, Dexter, you know Rebecca Hagelin and know that she later on became vice president at the Heritage Foundation, but used to listen to the program when she lived in Houston.
Yeah, and now she's got her own company where she books people on media, and she's always involved in cutting edge, especially family issues. She's written a couple books on raising kids, and she's been a long time listener since she was young, a young mom, to Point of View, and she always nails it. I love the way she describes our mission and our ministry because she's really got her finger sort of on the pulse of the culture wars as we do.
Well, and every time she's been on the program with us, Brad, she always says, now let me just have a challenge gift out here, which is what we had somebody earlier in the week did, and that's why we have this challenge right now.
It is.
$25,000 matching challenge, and she's done the very same thing when she's been on the program with us.
That's exciting, and it is a match challenge of $25,000. We really want to clear that up by the top of this hour, but it's not going to happen unless we get our friends like you to call. And remember, there's hundreds of things going on behind the scenes that are not God honoring. Your gift will help you to know what's really going on, because at Point of View, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to do it openly with truth with a capital T. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Remember, $25,000 dollar-for-dollar match challenge, and we've got to get it cleared up before the end of the program when it goes away.
You know, one of the issues you mentioned, Brad, things going on behind the scenes, and we've been talking about this whole issue of religious liberty.
Mm-hmm.
One of the battles I feel like we lost over the years was the battle for the definition of marriage in federal law. And because of that, we have a lot of challenges to the religious liberty of believers and how to operate, for instance, their businesses. And so, you know, and this is not, it's not getting less or smaller. Even if you would win a battle here, there would be another one that would pop up there. One of the important cases that First Liberty Institute is dealing with right now is the Klein case out in Oregon, because it's a business, and they weren't any wedding vendor that wants to stick with just, you know, marriage as God defines it is at risk now. And so it's a huge one. So, Jeremy, perhaps you could just explain it.
Yeah, Aaron and Melissa, I think almost half the country at this point probably knows about this case. But in case you haven't been paying attention, this is the original cake baker case, right? Aaron and Melissa they achieved the American dream, right? They discovered something that she was profoundly good at, which was creating cakes and creating these artistic designs on these cakes and really beautiful works of art that she would create. Her husband, Aaron, decided to help out with this. They opened up this cake shop. He ran the front office, and she ran in the back and baking the cakes. She wanted to train her daughter to take over the business someday. He was training his sons to be able to run a business as well. Until one day they had a former customer come in that they had provided some birthday celebration stuff to, no problems. They loved it. They came back and said, "We'd like you to have this cake." They found out that it was a same-sex wedding. They said, "Look, we love you guys, but we're really sorry. We just can't do that kind of business." Next thing they know, they're hauled before a Orwellian-sounding governmental entity at which they don't even have a chance to really tell their side of the story until later on about a year and a half later on appeal. And this administrative state pronounces them guilty of having violated the human rights laws there in the state of Oregon for simply abiding by their religious beliefs. Now, what has that led to? We're now waiting for the Supreme Court of Oregon to consider this case, and that's what it's going to take at this point. And maybe we'll have to go to the Supreme Court of the United States if this Masterpiece case that we've talked a lot about, if that doesn't go a certain way or what have you. But where things stand right now is the reward that Aaron and Melissa have received is, number one, the state of Oregon fined them $135,000. That was a penalty of $135,000 for simply abiding by the religious beliefs. And then if you were to go on social media for their page, or you can find some of it at our page as well, what you would find is not people patting them on the back so much as people saying things like, you look a lot better with a hole in your head from my gun. I have every right to be able to vandalize your property. We hope your children get cancer and die. I mean, these are things that people, why? Yeah, why is that? Why do people feel the ability? Well, here's why. When the government pronounces you as outside of the world of protection of the law, the people in this country recognize what the government has done and says, oh, they must not be protected by the law. Therefore, I have no responsibility to treat them equally, fairly, or with any form of tolerance whatsoever. And so that's why it's so important to bring these cases, to talk about them here, to remind us that the government has a big responsibility here, and that is to showcase how we are going to be a diverse and tolerant society. I find myself in this case in the odd spot of agreeing with the ACLU, because on their website, I think still today, you can find them, and it says there, on cases like this, they say, freedom of expression for ourselves requires freedom of expression for others. Now, I don't know why the ACLU isn't representing them right now, but we're happy that they agree with us that if we want to have freedom of expression, we need to ensure that everybody, even those we disagree with, have the ability to express themselves as well.
Gary Bauer was on earlier in the week, Penna, and I'd love to get your comments because he said, the argument that we heard before same-sex marriage was legal was we just want our rights. And so it was actually portrayed as, well, we're victims, and as soon as you give victims their rights, that'll be fine. But the moment they got their rights, then they use that as a club. And now today, if there's a battle between religious liberty and LGBT, the argument always is LGBT wins over religious liberty.
It's become a weapon against really the Christian faith, and not just the Christian faith inside the church, which is where they'd like to keep it, but in your life. And so if there's an issue that affects Americans, millions of them, it's this, because there's so many ways. I mean, marriage was the first one. The wedding vendors was the first one. But there's also been this whole issue of the transgender bathrooms, and what do businesses do with regard to that? And that starts to become a way to get at them in cities, localities, states across the nation. So it's something that affects really all Americans, and I think it's just dawning on people where we're at, and that we have to get this right.
Jeremy, let's talk about what's at stake, because if these decisions go the wrong way, it's hard then to think about being a Christian photographer, a Christian baker, a Christian florist, even a Christian innkeeper, because someone along the line, some LGBT group, is going to use that to force you out of business if you actually speak on or act on your religiously held beliefs, don't you think?
I've heard that. And here's the reality is that we've got to maintain this line of tolerance and diversity. We as a country want a diverse public square. We don't want to drive people away from that. In fact, our government should value the differences of opinions that are out there. Our founding fathers recognized that. That's why they inscribed this in the First Amendment to say, look, you can have your opinion and you can have yours and I can have mine. And we're going to be in a rigorous search for the truth here where we could even yell at each other, but we can still call each other neighbors. But that seems to be passing from the scene right now. And that is a great regret. Because if we're not able to have these honest dialogues with one another, we're never going to be able to arrive at the tenacity of the truth that we need to be able to arrive at. Instead, we ought to be tolerating a diversity of opinions to come into the public square to have these discussions, to be able to have people that they can still disagree with me, and I can still call them my fellow neighbor, my fellow citizen, my fellow American, without having to victimize them with my own vitriol. That's not appropriate.
Well, again, one of the reasons we challenge you to consider what you might do to join with us is because we believe in kind of a live and let live philosophy, but it is certainly beginning to vanish from the universities, from some of the boardrooms, and even from some of the places of employment. So, Brad, this is one more reason why I think individuals need to support Point of View.
This whole discussion we just had in the last several minutes exactly illustrates why Point of View is so important. Because we are giving a voice. We have a lot of people say that. We can't let the voice of Point of View ever go away. We can't compromise that voice. It's too important. So give us a call, won't you please? 800-347-5151. Do you want us to continue to have this voice next week, next month, next year, a decade from now? Well, if you do, then we need to hear from you to help us continue the funding of this ministry. Listener-supported ministry, 800-347-5151. And there's a $25,000 match challenge on the table. Listen, guys, if we don't get that all, it goes away. It's at risk. So it has to be matched to get into our total. 800-347-5151. And we really want to get that cleared up by the top of the hour. Won't you please contact us? Also, pointofview.net, you can give that way as well.
And I would encourage you to do that as well, because you can certainly watch us on Facebook Live. You can also, of course, go to the website, pointofview.net. You can see the various welcome gifts at pointofview.net. But also, you can give us a call right now. We have people waiting for your call, 800-347-5151. We'll be right back.
You know the need. Change is within reach. Reach out and seize the moment. As former White House official Gary Bauer can say from experience, what we do here, you and Point of View, makes a difference.
In my time in government, when Point of View provided people with a phone number or an address or a way to communicate to the powerful people here in Washington, D.C., the effect was incredible, and it was immediate.
You can create real and lasting change. For a few more hours, we have a $25,000 challenge. Your commitment to the Truth Team, whatever amount, will be doubled up to that number. Stretch a bit. Make change happen.
Either people of faith will take action and defend their values, or the playing field's going to be left to those that have quite a different agenda.
Get in the game before time runs out. Call 800-347-5151 or visit pointofview.net/team. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Coming to the end of Truth Team Week, and that's why we need to hear from you. If you've been waiting until now, the time is now. The future is now, which is, of course, the theme this week. And we have in studio with us Penna Dexter, Jeremy Dice, who we're going to be hearing from in just a minute, and Brad Fisk. And we're going to get into some of the issues about Syria and Facebook and all the rest. But first of all, we have this match on the table. We've challenged people, Brad, to call our number, and we still have a number of individuals on the phone, but we have, it looks like at least one open line that I can see at the moment, 800-347-5151. I guess we have 3 open lines now, I just saw. So that is an opportunity, if you've got a busy signal, to call right now, because we want to hear from you.
Okay, we started at $25,000. It's down to $21,300. And here are some of the folks that helped us get there. Curtis and Karen and Lori and Rhonda and Karen and Sherry and James and Vernon and Rick and Ruth and, you covered up. Oh, Larry. Can't leave Larry out. Okay, so, hey, listen, thanks to all of you who are calling. But listen, there's a whole lot of you that haven't called yet. Join the team, won't you, please? You can either go to online at pointofview.net, or you can give us a call to join the Truth Team. $1 a day is really what it's a great starting point if you've never given here before. And that's $360 a year. During the match, it becomes $720, Kerby. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
I just want to commend you guys on your program. I love listening to you.
I want to say, first of all, that I really enjoyed the Millennial Roundtable, and I love the program altogether. I think Kerby is great, and I really appreciate all of y'all, all that y'all do, and the truth that y'all put out.
I think you guys and gals are more right on about the assessment of this country right now than anything I've heard. You know, I go home and I tell my wife, you've got to hear what they're talking about on the show.
Point of View is actually a lifeline for me, and I'm actually a third-generation Point of View listener. I homeschool my girls, and I don't think I could do what I do without Point of View on a daily basis. Without ministries like Point of View, we really don't have much hope for the future of our children, our grandchildren. They just really help on a daily basis protect the freedoms that we enjoy today. I can't see a better way to invest in our future than to support Point of View.
Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it. Not only that, I want to encourage everybody listening to donate, because without our donations, I know that y'all won't be able to stay on the air, and it's just, I don't know where we get this kind of information if it wasn't from y'all.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
We love hearing from our listeners. They talked about the roundtable. They talked about truth with a capital T. They said right on content, a lifeline for homeschoolers. Without Point of View, we don't have much hope. We protect freedom. I love that. It's great. Great comments. 800-347-5151. Join your voice with ours, won't you, please?
And again, you can also go to the website, pointofview.net. Penna, we also heard about third-generation listeners. We got a story about that, don't we?
We do. You know, when Jeremy Dice first came to Dallas, I believe, Jeremy, you were working with First Liberty Institute, but you were not in Dallas, and then you came. And then we invited you to come in and co-host one day, and that was the first. Kerby, you may have known, but I did not know that you'd been in the back seat listening to Point of View when you were a kid with your mom. And to me, that just means a lot, because it shows that, 2 hours every day, sometimes it takes a while to get the Christian worldview through people's brains and into their hearts. And when kids are doing that, we're not really talking to kids, but you were there listening and absorbing, weren't you?
And I remember that day walking in and meeting 2 of my childhood heroes, people I'd heard on the radio growing up and had a chance to meet. Now I get to work with and see sometimes on a daily basis, seeing you, and we share office spaces in the same areas here. But, my story really starts with a mom who was very faithful and a mom who wanted to make sure that her kid was getting the appropriate instruction. And so my parents, both my parents, my mom and my dad, made it a very intentional decision to make sure we talked about the issues of the day, that not only do we discuss the issues of the day, the hard things that were taking place in the world around us that we would see maybe in the newspaper or hear on the radio, but that we would connect that to our worldview as well. I had the great privilege of growing up in a home that taught me about my faith at an early age and instilled that inside of me. But I had two older sisters, and they seemed to have rehearsals for choirs and other things all the time. And so my mom and I would sit out in the Fort Myers Christian School parking lot listening to WSOR down there in Fort Myers and waiting for my sister to get out of yet another rehearsal in the back of this, old conversion van that we had, this big behemoth of a van that we had to sit in and to wait in the hot sunlight of Southwest Florida, listening to Marlon Maddox, Kerby Anderson, and Penna Dexter. And they would have roundtable discussions just like this to talk about the issues of that day that were troubling people and how do we connect what we believe with what's going on in the world. They would interview incredible people that were formative in my life to be able to instruct me about not only politics but the faith and just so many things that you guys have talked about for years now. And so it was extremely important to me to grow up hearing those things that motivated me in part to want to become an attorney to defend religious liberty. Perhaps I just argued too much with my mother, but she identified that there was a good opportunity there, that I had a certain skill, that was a place there for me to become an attorney. And she was able to take point of view, convert that into, okay, let's connect our worldview here on things, point me in the direction that I needed to go, complete with my own worldview, and to be able to send me on a path to become what I am today, an attorney to defending religious liberty in this country. And so none of that would have happened had you guys not started this program and been faithful in laboring to provide it to the country around us here. And my guess is that somewhere in this country today is sitting in some minivan in some school parking lot waiting for yet another rehearsal to end, another practice to get out, is some kid with his mom or maybe with his dad sitting there listening to this program right now saying, this is an interesting topic for us to consider here. What does it mean in my life? Mom and Dad, you don't know what could happen by simply listening to this program day in and day out with your kids, to provide them with the content that they need to be able to have this worldview, to be fully equipped with what they need to have in life, to be able to compete in the future, to be a leader in the future, to preserve not only what you believe, but the ability to, in fact, even believe it. So, Mom, if you're sitting in the front seat and you've got the radio on today, good for you. Know that what one mother once did years ago made a huge difference in a kid's life. And it may seem like a silly little thing to turn on that radio and listen to each other, listen to this program while you're sitting with each other, eating potato chips as a snack after school. But you, Mom, you are having a huge impact on your kid by just having the radio turned on. Now, take it home afterwards. Go home and sit around that kitchen table with your husband, with your family, and discuss what you heard on this program and what it means to you and your family.
Yeah. Outstanding. By the way, I might just mention, talk about paying forward, because now most individuals about this time of the day also get a chance to hear the First Liberty briefing that you do. So again, you are also paying it forward. And of course, today we'll hear Penna Dexter's commentary, but that's just one more benefit. Don't you think about this? Paying it forward. There may be some young people listening today that will be the future lawyers, businessmen, pastors, even broadcasters that are actually listening to the program right now.
I think there's such a divide between the right and the left today in America. And so, we want the people, the families who are raising kids who still have faith and who have sort of more of a conservative view of things to be very well educated, not only in the basics of Christianity and the basics of being a conservative, but also in the nuances and how it can be applied. And so, that's the beauty of talk radio or the internet. If you want to go listen to us as a podcast, you can do that. And you can do it topically, too. So if parents wanted to use Point of View as an educational tool, you can find shows that have been broadcast in the past very easily on our website and use it that way. And then we have this whole other realm now of the millennial generation who are part of our broadcast. They're part of our audience and our broadcast. And I think that's just a wonderful addition and really a very wise thing for us to be doing and to be involved in now.
That makes me want to give. Brad,
That's right.
What do you think?
I think so. And you know what? I'm thinking right now, within the sound of our voices, there are some folks who the Lord has really blessed. And financially, they could give $1,000, $3,000, $5,000 toward this $25,000 match.
Yes.
We are about $21,300 left to go. This money is at risk. We don't make the match, we don't get to have the money. So it really is important for you to give us a call. 800-347-5151.
I'll tell you one thing that my mother did not have back in that 1984, or it was not a minivan, it was a large van. She did not have a cell phone. But I bet you moms do today that are sitting in that parking lot right now that can dial 1-800-347-5151 and join a part of this team as well.
What a great opportunity. And again, if you're near a computer, you also can simply go to pointofview.net. You can see some of the welcome gifts, and you can certainly make your pledge there as well. You don't have to have all the money right now. No gift is too small. No gift is too large,
That's right.
as you mentioned just a minute ago. 1-800-347-5151. Again, pointofview.net or 1-800-347-5151. Right now, you get to hear Penna Dexter's commentary. We'll be right back.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control has declared April STD Awareness Month. They cite the latest data to point out that sexually transmitted diseases are at record levels and that young people, for behavioral and biological reasons, are at high risk of contracting STDs. The CDC's plan of action is talk, test, and treat. Okay, but how about let's tell kids that sexual promiscuity can be dangerous, even lethal? Be clear with them that they should practice restraint to save their health and their lives and the lives of others. Government bodies, including most public schools, simply don't want to be this blunt. Talk, test, and treat is part of the reason we've had a 5% rise in chlamydia from 2015 to 2016, a 10% rise in gonorrhea, and an 18% rise in syphilis. Yet governments refuse to hold abstinence as the standard. In honor of STD Awareness Month, a Stamford, Connecticut toy company called Giant Microbes is, quote, rebranding STDs as charming and cuddly with a line of stuffed animals based on venereal diseases. Andrew Klein, the owner of Giant Microbes, says this is to break the stigma surrounding STDs. Stigma? What stigma? Planned Parenthood, which among other distinctions is the nation's largest abortion provider, has succeeded in obliterating any stigma around premarital sex and its consequences. A Pennsylvania branch of Planned Parenthood tweeted, "We need a Disney princess who's had an abortion." And yet schools, inexplicably, bring in Planned Parenthood and its curricula to teach sex ed to kids. Currently, the organization, with the cooperation of groups like the ACLU and the Human Rights Campaign, is working to get model legislation passed that pushes yet another graphic sex ed curriculum into classrooms around the nation. This one will be taught without parents' knowledge or consent. On April 23rd, some parents are keeping their kids home from school to protest. To find out about it, go to sexedsitout.com. For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Hey, this is John Stonestreet, the host of Breakpoint and the president of the Colson Center for Christian Worldview. As a champion of Christians thinking clearly about what's happening in the culture from a Christian worldview, there are a few people that I look to for more clarity and confidence and providing clear answers to the big questions that our culture is asking. And Kerby Anderson, I love what happens on Point of View each and every day. And anytime I get the opportunity to be a guest on the program, I always think that Kerby is the best interviewer in the business. I encourage you to support Point of View with your prayers and with your financial support.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
John Stonestreet, I met him one time when he came to a meeting at Probe, and he was just getting started. And of course, I met Eric Metaxas before I wrote all those best-selling books, and now look at both of them. They're the voices of Breakpoint. And so, again, just shows you that individuals investing in the past have made an impact in the present. Your investment now will make an impact in the future. Brad, how we doing on the match?
Well, we're making progress. $19,300 remaining of the $25,000 we started with this hour. And we're just asking you to call. A bunch of lines just opened up. I was looking in the phone room a moment ago. So the phone number to get in there and make your very best gift is 1-800-347-5151. That's toll free, 800-347-5151. And people are giving online as well, Kerby, at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net.
Let's, if we can, maybe go around the round table for just a minute. We have Penna, Dexter, and Jeremy Dice here, and just maybe talk a little bit more about why individuals who are listening to this program, some who have been listening for years, we've had some people remember when Marlon Maddox was the host. Others, of course, are more recently joining us, but why should they give to Point of View?
Well, we haven't even talked about one thing that I think is a real issue today, and that is fake news. So we at Point of View don't broadcast fake news. We try to debunk it, and we give the truth. So I think that's one reason why people should support Point of View. Also, we help people understand how to look at the news, how to look at current events, and, just different things that are happening in the culture. And we bring them details that they perhaps didn't know. So that's Point of View. And then we're on every day. So we help you with the things that are coming up all the time. It's not something you have to wait for. You can listen to Point of View every day, and it's live for most of you. And then we have materials, backup materials to embellish, to help you understand each issue that we talk about more deeply. You can get that at all the time during the week, even when we're not broadcasting. You can disperse it, give it out to people. So that's another reason. And I think also that you can another reason really for Point of View is it helps you do something. And some people feel like they're not making a difference even though they would like to. They don't know how to do it. They're not involved perhaps in an organization or politically. But we do a lot here at Point of View. We accomplish a lot by informing people, and you can help us do that. You can be part of our team by either making a pledge, making a donation, and we're giving you those ways, especially today, we're emphasizing that. So we hope that you will take part in Truth Team 360 today, right now.
Those action items, we talked about that with Michael Ferris. Matter of fact, I know we have a piece that's coming up here where Gary Bauer says, every time I'm on this program, I get calls from Congress saying, what did you just say on radio? Or some of these pieces of legislation that needed to be passed, which moved through, or others that needed to be killed, like we talk about H.R. 12, the one that would have affected homeschooling in a very negative way, which were killed. So those are some action items. But one of the things, Brad, you said earlier in the week is if I had to find one word to describe Point of View, it's the word truth.
With a capital T.
Yes.
Biblical truth. Biblical truth. There's a big difference between, and people are redefining truth to suit themselves.
Yeah, post-truth culture.
That's happening all over the place. And it's like, no. That's not truth. So again, your gift will help us continue to be this voice that is so needed in a culture that's kind of going south. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151.
So again, we talked about fake news and truth and those kinds of things. Jeremy, what would you say? Why should individuals support Point of View? Of course, you've already given us a good reason, because there are other Jeremy Dice out there someday that might actually be influenced by that. Any other thoughts?
I hope there are better Jeremy Dices out there that are going to come out and change the culture. And that's where I would go is, yes, we got the truth that is out there, but it's the people that are going to hear this, that are going to be changed by it, that are going to go out and do something with it. That's what's really going to be the case. Look, Ronald Reagan was very famous for saying that freedom is not something we pass down through the bloodstream. It's not in our DNA. We have to recommit ourselves to it every single generation. Well, Mom and Dad, how do you do that? How do you do that if you're a teenager? How do you do that if you're starting out in your career? You do that by making sure you understand what freedom actually is. And it's being talked about right here. It's being talked about with truth and with how we integrate that with the world around us. But you then do that by taking what you have heard, what you have learned, what you have been equipped with, sitting around that dinner table at night, talking with little Johnny and Susie across from you there as you're eating your peas that night, and making sure you're understanding what those things are, and then equipping them day after day, little bit by little bit, until one day they're going to go out on their own, and they're going to be ones that change the world as well. And that's why I say it's important that there are better Jeremy Dices into the future. I'm the Jeremy Dice for this generation, but I'm not always going to be around. And so I know there's a young man or a young woman right now sitting in a minivan listening to this program. Hey, you too can do this. And in fact, I need you to do this in the future. We need you to do this, or else the promise of this country is going to fail.
Again, we have a number of individuals waiting for your phone call. And by the way, as I look out there, we have, of course, everything from seniors to millennials answering the phone as well. We talk about the millennial generation. We have everything. I know my wife is answering the phones, and we have some of our staff that are some other volunteers that have come in. One is a former intern answering the phone. One is somebody just started working here today. But they are all waiting for your phone call. And as I look, we still have 3 open lines. That's all we have right now, even though we've had more people join in because we knew there'd be a rush this Friday. Right. Why is it everybody waits the last moment? I don't know. But that's
you wrote about that.
Yeah, I wrote about that. And that's the piece on procrastination, which, by the way, you can receive those commentaries every day. And Penna Dexter's comes on Saturday. So, again, that's another benefit. You're supporting not just the 2-hour radio program, the videos that we produce, the articles we post, the commentaries that are there, and much, much more that we'll be talking about in the future. And it's all available to you by simply picking up the phone and calling 800-347-5151. And again, don't forget, every dollar is doubled. So again, if you join us at the $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 a year, that becomes $720.
So the monthly gifts are especially strategic. I'm just going to take a moment, and I'm going to ask you to do something with, just imagine this for a minute. Every grandma and grandpa within the sound of my voice right now, and every parent, look into the face of those dear, dear, precious children. Look into the face of that little girl, that little boy that's yours. God has given you responsibility for. Look into that face of that grandbaby or that granddaughter or that grandson. What kind of a world are they going to inherit? Can we do something about affecting what it is they are going to have to do, they're going to want to do, and are they going to have the freedom to do what God is leading them to do? I would ask you to really prayerfully consider giving your very best gift. I said this earlier. I'm sure there's some people out there that could give a $5,000 gift. That'd be really strategic right now. 800-347-5151. But there's somebody who can give $5. It's not the amount. It's the fact that you're participating and you're helping us continue to do what God has called us to do. And that is bring you the biblical worldview truth every single day. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. And you can give at pointofview.net. Pointofview.net.
And again, you got me thinking about that. I put up the picture of my own granddaughter here.
Look at her. What a doll.
She was just 2 years old yesterday.
Oh, that's awesome.
So think of your children, think of your grandchildren. Do it for them. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. We'll give you a total right after this.
You know the need. Change is within reach. Reach out and seize the moment. As former White House official Gary Bauer can say from experience, what we do here, you and Point of View, makes a difference.
In my time in government, when Point of View provided people with a phone number or an address or a way to communicate to the powerful people here in Washington, D.C., the effect was incredible, and it was immediate.
You can create real and lasting change. For a few more hours, we have a $25,000 challenge. Your commitment to the Truth Team, whatever amount, will be doubled up to that number. Stretch a bit. Make change happen.
Either people of faith will take action and defend their values, or the playing field's going to be left to those that have quite a different agenda.
Get in the game before time runs out. Call 800-347-5151 or visit pointofview.net/team. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of View, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging. Apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Coming down to the final hour of our Truth Team Week, and as we work our way through this and challenge you to support this ministry, we'll also spend some time talking about what is becoming a very big issue. It maybe is foreign policy by tweets. President Donald Trump the other day said Russia vows to shoot down any and all missiles fired at Syria. Get ready, Russia, because this will be coming nice and new and smart. You shouldn't be partners with a gas-killing animal who kills his people and enjoys it. I don't remember a president ever doing that before, so we'll get into what this means in just a minute. And, of course, we've also had testimony by Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook in front of Congress, so we've got a lot to cover. In studio with me, Penna, Dexter, Jeremy Dice, part of our weekend edition, which we always do, but also this is the end of our Truth Team Week, and Brad Fisk has been with us all week. So, Brad, we have a matching gift, matching challenge gift, or however you want to say it, matching fund on the table. And how are we doing in terms of some of that?
Well, we started a couple hours ago at $25,000 match. It's been whittled down to $19,000 to go. So a ways to go this hour, and we need to have that matched, Kerby, because this is a match challenge with a condition. It's only going to be given by the donor if it's matched dollar for dollar. So the phone number to call if you want to make sure we don't lose any of that $19,000 is 1-800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. We do this a couple times a year where we come to you and remind you that we're listener-supported radio. We cannot do Point of View without the support of our friends just like you. And we ask you a couple times a year, would you stand with us financially to make a difference in our culture for the gospel of Jesus Christ? Because we are all about a biblical world view. 800-347-5151.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
But I feel it's so important that we know what's going on, and you folks do a great job of it. And I also had joined, it's the best thing to do. Like somebody said, they do $1 a day, and they don't feel that so much. At the end of the month, they've got $30 to send right off. And it's up to us citizens to pay attention and do what we can, and to pray and to help you out as much as we can.
Thank you so much for everything that everyone in that room does, and that we need this show like you wouldn't believe.
My husband and I are your supporters. We just really appreciate the show and the people you bring on.
Yes, thank you for, first of all, what you do. And I just wanted to say that your program is giving us a voice, and I want to thank you for that.
So I've been listening to y'all for years. I'm not a politico whatsoever. I believe in voting, yes. But if it weren't for y'all, I wouldn't know how to vote. I'm serious. I wouldn't know the first thing about voting, but I do now.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Again, just a reminder, Brad, that individuals depend on Point of View. And we might, for just a minute, before we get too much further on this idea of voting, mention, Penna, Dexter, that we have voters' guides that we make available. We educate individuals, and in many cases, what we have done is when you get to the election, which is going to be this November, you are going to be able to go to a chart, or in many cases, we just have a map, and you click on your state, and then it pulls down links to every single one of the voting guides that we have been able to identify in that state. And some of them certainly tell you where the senators or the congressmen stand, but some of these even go down to the local level. And that's so important because one of the booklets that we've been making available is Making Your Vote Count. And again, it's important for us not to just vote for those up and down the ballot, but on the very bottom of that ballot, because some of those end up being the farm team and end up serving you later on in Congress or in the state legislature.
Sure, and that's where a lot of people don't know who to vote for. They'll know, the high profile, who's running for Senate, or in the primary, even for maybe their House member. But to know the state representative, state senator, or maybe some of the judges, commissioners, and things like that. We don't have this for every locality, but we have it for a lot. And so it's really, really helpful. And it's a service we provide. We're able to pull together for you, for your practical use.
Let me just mention that if you join at the $45 a month level, one of the things we make available are these booklets. One of those I just mentioned, Making Your Vote Count, Homosexual Theology, Second Amendment, Sharia law, and on and on. So if you join us the $1 a day or $30 a month level, that's, of course, the Bible stick. But, Brad, at whatever level people want to join us, $30 a month, $45 a month, $100 a month, or maybe a one-time gift. First of all, we do depend upon everyone's gift. It's no gift is too small,
Absolutely.
no gift is too large. But more importantly, we also are in a situation right now where we have a match, which means your gift of $1,000 becomes $2,000. Your gift of $360 a year becomes $720 a year, assuming my math is right.
It is.
And it certainly illustrates, again, why we need to hear from you right now, because that match is on the table, but eventually, if we don't meet it, it gets pulled off the table, which I'm surprised about, but that is indeed the truth, isn't it?
It is. That's exactly correct. It's at risk, and that means we have to have this done by the top of the hour. That's how much time is remaining, less than 60 minutes. And so we ask you to call. This is a strategic time for you to step up and say, you know what? I don't want any of that money to go off the table. I want to put it all in the coffers of Point of View so we can continue to do what we do. 800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. Waiting to hear from you. No busy signal right now.
Any comments around the table about how to be involved? Because if nothing else, we have a real financial need right now, and I just want to hear from some of our listeners.
And talk about an opportunity to be effective. Your gift will be doubled. So I would say time is of the essence, and let's just make the phones ring. 800-347-5151, or you can go to pointofview.net.
When we come back, I want to talk about Syria for just a few minutes. We have posted a couple of articles, which, again, is one of the benefits of listening to Point of View. We have one article that actually is from the editors of National Review. We have a piece that we also want to talk about from John Smirek, who's been on the program before. Would a U.S. invasion of Syria be a just war? I'll also quote from our friend Pat Buchanan, and even today, the Wall Street Journal, which, of course, Penna, Dexter, you and I both get, has talked about the high stakes in Syria. So that's one of those issues. And, of course, Mark Zuckerberg in front of both the House and the Senate, and some really interesting questions being asked of him from Senator Ben Sasse and Senator Ted Cruz and some others. But one that got my attention was Senator Dick Durbin said, would you mind telling us, Mark Zuckerberg, what hotel you stayed in last night? No, I don't think so. Why? Because that's really not public information. Would you mind telling us who you've actually sent text messages to? No. Well, that's, again, what happens when we have an issue of privacy, which, oh, by the way, is one of the other booklets we have here on privacy and surveillance. So, again, there are some real benefits, Brad, for actually becoming a member of the Truth Team. It's the Outlook magazine, it's the Bible Stick, it's all sorts of other resources.
And that Bible Stick, by the way, you can't buy it in stores. You can only get it through us, and it is the English Standard Version, dramatized music, sound effects, word for word, the English Standard Version. So very popular gift, and it's yours for $1 a day or more. $1 a day or more. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
Or the website, pointofview.net. We'll come back and talk about Syria and how we think about that right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
I often say on my radio program that we spend millions of dollars each year in research studies to validate what most mothers already know. This is certainly the case with the studies attempting to explain why certain people procrastinate. Andrew Santella writes about this in his book, Soon, An Overdue History of Procrastination from Leonardo and Darwin to You and Me. He explains the real reason you procrastinate in a recent article in Time magazine. People who procrastinate often postpone projects in order to have a self-serving excuse. If they wait until the last minute and do a poor job, they can always say that they could have done better if they didn't run out of time. Psychologists have a term for this practice. They call it self-handicapping. It is a strategy where people are actually sabotaging their own efforts. It is protection against the ego-crushing consequences of failure. It is worth mentioning that self-handicapping can take many other forms, like substance abuse or lousy sleep habits, but it shows up most prominently when people postpone work on a project. Psychologists have found that self-handicapping shows up in other ways. For example, students are more likely to postpone studying for a test when they are told that it was a meaningful evaluation of their abilities. They did not exhibit the same behavior if they were told the test was meaningless and was being taken only for fun. Consider this contrast. When the test counted, students procrastinated. When it didn't count, they diligently prepared. Procrastination appeals to some because it provides a way of controlling life that seems too chaotic and unmanageable, but it's helpful to know that often procrastination adds to the chaos. It is better to buckle down and get started on the project. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For more information about issues covered on Viewpoints, visit pointofview.net. Pointofview.net. Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Hello, Point of View listener. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Point of View Radio is so important to the Christian community in our country. Kerby Anderson's been a personal friend of mine for a long time. He's one of the best, very best in Christian broadcasting. And Marlon Maddox, the founder of Point of View, was a great friend of my dad's, Don Wildman. So our ties go way back. But Point of View is still aired here on American Family Radio, and we're proud to bring it to our listeners. Kerby and the team do a great job of giving a biblical worldview analysis of current events and issues that are in the news that we need to know about so we can be informed, engaged, and make a difference in our cultures. Folks, Kerby Anderson and the team there deserve your financial support. Write them a check, give them a donation with your credit card, whatever you can do to help them keep the cause of Christ before the public on their radio program, Point of View.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Good friend Tim Wildman, going all the way back to Don Wildman.
Yes,
We've all worked with him over the years at American Family Radio. By the way, I'd love to hear from some of you listening on American Family Radio. So you can give us a call at 800-347-5151. Or if you're calling after hours, simply go to the website pointofview.net. Either way. So there are just some ways that you can participate with us as well.
Hey, we started the match an hour ago with $25,000. It's a match challenge, dollar for dollar challenge. It's down to $17,900 to go. That's how much is left in that match. We want to put all of that in our total, as every dollar you give, whether it's a single gift or a monthly gift, will be matched dollar for dollar until we get to the $17,900 mark.
Well, again, we want to hear from you, 800-347-5151. We have Penna, Dexter, and Jeremy Dice here. I want to go around the roundtable for just a minute to talk about Syria. As I mentioned, as we opened up here, you had, of course, the tweet that came out from President Trump about we'll shoot down any missiles, that Russia said they'll shoot down any missiles and those kinds of things. And so then everybody was saying, wait a minute, I thought you were critical of the previous president for announcing when you're going to have an attack. So then he put out a tweet on Thursday saying, never said when an attack on Syria would take place, could be very soon or not soon at all. But do we need to get involved in Syria? What are your thoughts, Penna?
Well, this president didn't think so about a week ago. He said he was pulling everyone out of Syria. And, I don't know why this chemical, if that had anything to do with this chemical attack on civilians. And most people believe that it was done by the leader, Assad, and, to destroy your own country in order to consolidate your power over it. It's very sad situation there. And the question is, what does the United States do about it? Well, we've posted two pieces at pointofview.net. One is from the National Review, and they talk about how a year ago, we did respond with a missile attack, but they called it a pinprick strike, and they said it doesn't usually accomplish much. But what it did was sort of imply that we are going to take some responsibility for enforcing this awful or sort of a ban against chemical weapons being used. We don't want to see that happen. And so many of us feel that it should be responded to. But in this situation, we shouldn't be doing it alone. Lots of people are saying that we should at least pull in our NATO allies, the Turks, to help us. If we pull out and don't do anything, we're sort of leaving Iran and Russia as the only players and actors in Syria. So that's a reason to do it. But reasons not to do it. Well, we posted another piece from the stream at pointofview.net talking about just war and the theory of just war. And does this situation comply with that? Some of the other questions, are we absolutely certain that Assad perpetrated this chemical attack? Also, if we took out Assad, which a lot of people are saying perhaps we shouldn't go to that extreme, we're leaving Sunni Arab extremists in power. And Assad has provided sanctuary for Christians in Syria. And so, where are we leaving our brothers and sisters in Christ in Syria? So, that's just a small number of the sort of facts and things that we have to calculate here. I think Donald Trump, he likes to put the fear of God in everyone with his tweets. But I'm not exactly sure, and I don't even think he knows what he's going to do.
When you talk about the Christian issue, at one time there were more Christians in Iraq than any other Middle Eastern country. Now there's hardly any because of what happened after you take out Saddam Hussein. There are more Christians probably in Syria, and I use Christian in the broadest sense of the word. Okay, so I'm not talking about everybody's born again, but still you can see that. And you mentioned Russia. Really, one of the signature achievements under Ronald Reagan and others was to keep Russia out of the Middle East. And now Russia is right there in Syria, and in some respects actually threatens the southern flank of NATO. So there's some really important geopolitical questions. But, Jeremy, how would you speak to this issue? Because, again, we have this article that talks about whether or not an invasion of Syria would be a just war. Comes to the conclusion it would not. Also, we have another article on the whole issue of Syria. Any thoughts about how to think about this issue?
Yeah, I think people should take a long, hard look at what it looks like when freedom dies. And this is the evidence of evil in our modern age right now. And if we are so comfortable in our nice Western lives here with the air conditioning around us and no bombs falling near us and no one that you see that you have to step over with white foam coming out of their mouths because they've been gassed and killed that away, you better be thankful. But you also better pay attention because there really does exist an evil in this world. One face of that is Assad, the leader of Syria. And so in one sense, I'm very happy that we've got a president that is talking tough to Syria and is committed enough that he might just in fact go over there and make a really hard and physical statement against the use of this gas. The problem is, as we've known for years, is who is exactly using this gas? Is it Assad? Is it one of the militias or one of the groups, insurgents within Syria that likes to create destabilization. There's been years and years of reports of factions within the state of Syria that want to cause problems, not just for Syria, but beyond that, and especially for anybody who happens to be of a different religious belief than what they hold as right. They've crucified Christians, for goodness sake. They're in the modern era. So there is a lot of cause for concern here. And very troubling is that what do we do from, if it's not actual war or missiles that might be fired off or whatever it might be, what else do we do with that? Do we go to the United Nations? Well, the United Nations has not been very helpful. Nikki Haley has this week tried to pass another thing through the Security Council there, and Russia decided to veto that. That's a problem. That's a real concern that we have for a lot of things with that. But I do think that it would be incumbent upon the president to stop for a moment and kind of draw back from his commander-in-chief role to bring in the full power of the United States Congress on this as well. I would urge him to try to get them to do, well, something, but especially to think about whether or not Congress ought to be involved in this, creating some more war powers. I don't like to see an executive grow beyond what it's supposed to be doing here. Let's have that appropriate check from the United States Congress, bring in there to say, hey, look, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. And let's make sure that we, as we have for so much of our history, are willing to stand against present evil in this age.
And again, the framers understood the importance of having Congress declare war, but at least if nothing else, you both have raised an important question, and that is, was this chemical attack even from Assad? Tucker Carlson brought that up the other day, but I was interested in the Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, known as Mad Dog Mattis, said he's not so sure. And of course, you also have John Bolton and very quickly Mike Pompeo. I think we have the adults in the room now trying to deal with that. But Brad, before we continue our conversation on Syria, we got to remind our listeners that we're coming to the very end here, and we have a match on the table, don't we?
We do. $17,900 left to go on this original match of $25,000. And every dollar you give, whether it be a single gift or a monthly gift, will be doubled up to that $17,900 level. So, somebody could maybe give a $5,000 gift or a $3,000 gift. That would be very welcomed. But you know what? Somebody could also give $3 a month. That would be just as welcomed. It's really not discriminating the size of the gift. It's the heart attitude. It's the fact of doing as God leads you to do. Pray and obey is what I like to say. So the phone number is 800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. We do have some lines open right now, so you'll get right in. You can also always give at pointofview.net, pointofview.net. But something very important to understand, we have to get this matched or it goes away. It doesn't go into our total. So we don't want to let any of those dollars go away. We need them in our bank account to help us do what we do best, which is to serve you every single day. 800-347-5151.
The theme is the future is now, and it really is, as we talk about the opportunity to make a difference. Yep. We've already talked about some of those individuals in the past that have been benefiting from those gifts in the past, but you need to step forward now and help us out. 800-347-5151. We have some lines open. We need to hear from you. You can, of course, go to the website, pointofview.net, but give us a call right now, 1-800-347-5151.
You know the need. Change is within reach. Reach out and seize the moment. As former White House official Gary Bauer can say from experience, what we do here, you and Point of View, makes a difference.
In my time in government, when Point of View provided people with a phone number or an address or a way to communicate to the powerful people here in Washington, D.C., the effect was incredible, and it was immediate.
You can create real and lasting change. For a few more hours, we have a $25,000 challenge. Your commitment to the Truth Team, whatever amount, will be doubled up to that number. Stretch a bit. Make change happen.
Either people of faith will take action and defend their values, or the playing field's going to be left to those that have quite a different agenda.
Get in the game before time runs out. Call 800-347-5151 or visit pointofview.net/team. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Final half hour today, so if you've been waiting, the time is now.
Yes, indeed.
We've said the future is now is the theme
That's
of
right.
our Truth Team Week, but we have a half an hour left to take care of all sorts of issues. We're going to get into some more topics in just a minute, but always we like to give you a little bit of an update. Penna, Dexter, Jeremy Dice in studio with us, but Brad Fisk, we have this match on the table. We're whittling it down, so that's good, but if you can change the metaphor, we have to climb a mountain, and we still can barely see the top of that mountain, so we got a lot more to do.
$14,130 remaining in the match challenge, and it will be cleared up. So we're just inviting you, a gift of any amount, monthly or single gift, and that will be doubled up to the $14,130. So here's the phone number to call, 800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. Lines are open for you right now.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
You know, I can't go to Washington. I can't do those things. So the only way that I can help is the way that God has provided for me, and to give some of that back to you guys. So, like you said, partnering with Point of View, because, you know, you can't do it alone. Thank you very much for what you guys do. Believe me, it's a needed thing, and I just hope everybody certainly would get on the bandwagon with you.
I can't afford not to support you. Point of View gives me a voice, and I just appreciate you. And I've been here listening for years, so I thank you, and I do. Again, I said I can't afford not to support you, because I want you to keep going.
I'm 25 years old, and I started listening to Point of View about 4 years ago, and it has changed the way that I think and the way that I view the world around me.
My husband and I are your supporters. We just really appreciate the show and the people you bring on.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Future is now. And again, the opportunity for you to give is now. 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. And we have 4 lines open at the moment. So if you would like to join us, now's the time to do so. It gets real busy at the end because everybody waits to the last few minutes. I do not know why they do that. I've even written about that today on procrastination. But we were talking about Syria. I wanted to get into the military for just a minute. In fact, one of our callers wanted to talk about Syria. We'll do that on Monday because we're just so busy right now with some of the things we're talking about. But Penna, one of the other things that we have talked about with Jeremy Dice and also with Michael Berry, and of course with Kelly Shackelford, is what's going on in the military. And I thought for just a minute, we have a lot of our listeners that are in the military or served in the military, and I really want to hear from them today. 1-800-347-5151. But Jeremy's been working in this area along with Michael Berry, and we've got a couple stories we need to tell people about.
Well, under the last administration, for 8 years, we saw sort of a degradation in the religious liberty of people who served. And there's a matter that First Liberty has been talking to us about. There's been some new developments, but this veteran, Oscar Rodriguez, would give a speech for retirement ceremonies for others that were retiring from the U.S. Air Force. And he was actually, because he mentions God in this flag folding ceremony, it got some Air Force officials, I guess, upset. And he was actually assaulted and removed from the stage in one of these ceremonies. And Jeremy, you've had to take some strong action, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And folks should go to firstliberty.org because I want them to watch the video of this because it's truly jarring where Sergeant Rodriguez gets up to get, now remember he's a sergeant that has retired now. He's a veteran. He's on base at another sergeant who's retiring as well, who had invited Oscar to be there for that ceremony, specifically to provide this speech as the flag folding speech. And he's going to say things that are so controversial, like God bless America, God bless our troops, God bless the United States. And because of that, as he gets up to provide this speech, he starts to recite it as the flag is being folded, as you know how they do in the military like that. And these men that are wearing their ABUs, their camouflage units, or their uniforms, they get up and they literally grab Sergeant Rodriguez and carry him out of that retirement ceremony. I mean, it's just it's a stunning thing to watch that these officials would dare to put their hands on this honorable veteran who has served with distinction as a part of the honor guard in the United States Air Force for his entire career. And then afterwards, as he's just a private citizen now, these military officials lay their hands on him, assault him, and carry him out of the room. That's just shocking. But we tried for a long time to get an apology out of the United States Air Force, and the officials there just simply refused to do so. And so we were really left with no choice. We had to go ahead and file a lawsuit on this matter. And really all that, there's some other kind of things to make sure this doesn't happen again in the future. But primarily the thrust of things is we're just looking for an apology from the United States Air Force, these officials in specific, that assaulted Oscar and carried him out of the room. No one should, goodness sakes, these are the men that fight the nation's battles. Are we scared of them hearing the word God? Certainly they can hear the word God without being afraid.
You know, we have heard that the Trump administration has sort of changed its policies with regard to religious liberty in the U.S. military. But I guess that you don't turn the Titanic around in a day, and there has to be a lot of spade work done in order to secure these liberties, because there are still holdovers, bureaucrats, or officials in the branches of the military that are going to enforce what was sort of the rules under the Obama administration. And so it's just taking some work, isn't it?
Oh, it is, absolutely. And the swamp is deep over there, and it surrounds the Pentagon as well. That the previous administration to President Trump has done their level best to curtail religious liberty, that robust idea that we understand the First Amendment to provide to us, and they've turned it into this freedom of worship, which is just downright anemic and severely limited. So, it's surprising to me to watch guys like Oscar Rodriguez be carried out and assaulted for daring to say the word God on an Air Force base. But at the same time, it's not surprising because we've seen so much of it. And it's regrettable that we've seen so much of that. It needs to stop.
So there was also, speaking of the military and some of these violations of religious liberty, there was a victory recently, wasn't there?
Yeah, no, Colonel Leland Bohannon, also in the United States Air Force. And this guy's been deployed. He's a bomber pilot. He's been in command of some bomber wings. Great guy. And he's serving in the Pentagon, as a matter of fact, right now. He's on active duty. And, he was another gentleman was retiring from the force. And as part of the ceremony of that, the tradition is that they provide this little, basically a thank you note. It's a certificate that they provide to the spouse of the retiring airman. And typically it's kind of like giving flowers to the spouse, recognizing you've served along with the airman and all that. Well, this particular individual had a same-sex partner and a same-sex spouse. And Colonel Bohannon was, understood that and recognized it for what it was worth. But he felt that if he signed that document, it provided a public endorsement to that behavior. And he just couldn't bring himself to do that. But he also felt badly and wanted to make sure that he was well cared for and should be. And so he secured the signature of a 2-star general. Instead of a colonel, now you've got a 2-star general signing this certificate of appreciation. But apparently that wasn't good enough, and that airmen took him to task. Colonel Bohannon was punished. But this story has a happy ending because the Secretary of the Air Force just last week sent a letter to us and to the members of Congress who were curious about this case and rather upset about it, and said that Colonel Bohannon's record is completely cleared. He had been passed over for some promotion because of this little smudge on his record. He's back in line for those promotional elements as well. He will retire when he chooses to retire with honor and distinction and not have this on his record. So that's a great thing. And it's a very rare thing where the Secretary of the Air Force, appointed by President Trump, who at her confirmation hearings committed to protecting the religious liberty of our United States airmen, now she's doing that. And that's a great thing.
Well, it illustrates, again, elections have consequences, Brad.
They do.
And, again, this is why we want to educate you about these issues, one that you should pray about, and then one that we should celebrate about. But we need to hear from you because we're coming to the last few minutes, right,
We are.
of the opportunity for you to participate with us.
That's right. Truth Team Week is just about done, but we're not done yet. $14,130 to go to get this match cleared up and get all of those funds into Point of View because it is at risk. Any money that we don't raise of that $14,130 goes away. And so we really don't want that to happen, and you can make a difference right now. If you believe in religious liberty, if you believe that that's really important for you and your family, give us a call, won't you? And stand with us financially, 1-800-347-5151. That's a toll-free number, 800-347-5151. Remember, your monthly gifts, we get to count the whole year in that. So those are especially strategic right now.
Well, again, we brought in a number of people to answer the phones, and they're chatting with each other right now, which is
they
fine.
really are.
But we need them to be answering the phone.
We do.
We didn't expect these people to come in here and stand around and just chit-chat while they are waiting for your phone call. So if you've been waiting to make that phone call, now it's time for you to make that call as we go to a break. 800-347-5151. As I said just a minute ago, I would especially love to hear from some of you in the military. We've talked about a prayer target for the military, a success in the military, and so that's why we really challenge all of you to participate and give us a call right now. 800-347-5151. Of course, you can always go to the website, pointofview.net.
Every dollar double. Let's go to the phones.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control has declared April STD Awareness Month. They cite the latest data to point out that sexually transmitted diseases are at record levels and that young people, for behavioral and biological reasons, are at high risk of contracting STDs. The CDC's plan of action is talk, test, and treat. Okay, but how about let's tell kids that sexual promiscuity can be dangerous, even lethal? Be clear with them that they should practice restraint to save their health and their lives and the lives of others. Government bodies, including most public schools, simply don't want to be this blunt. Talk, test, and treat is part of the reason we've had a 5% rise in chlamydia from 2015 to 2016, a 10% rise in gonorrhea, and an 18% rise in syphilis. Yet governments refuse to hold abstinence as the standard. In honor of STD Awareness Month, a Stamford, Connecticut toy company called Giant Microbes is, quote, rebranding STDs as charming and cuddly with a line of stuffed animals based on venereal diseases. Andrew Klein, the owner of Giant Microbes, says this is to break the stigma surrounding STDs. Stigma? What stigma? Planned Parenthood, which among other distinctions is the nation's largest abortion provider, has succeeded in obliterating any stigma around premarital sex and its consequences. A Pennsylvania branch of Planned Parenthood tweeted, "We need a Disney princess who's had an abortion." And yet schools, inexplicably, bring in Planned Parenthood and its curricula to teach sex ed to kids. Currently, the organization, with the cooperation of groups like the ACLU and the Human Rights Campaign, is working to get model legislation passed that pushes yet another graphic sex ed curriculum into classrooms around the nation. This one will be taught without parents' knowledge or consent. On April 23rd, some parents are keeping their kids home from school to protest. To find out about it, go to sexedsitout.com. For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
This is Jeremiah Johnson, the president of Christian Thinkers Society, and our mission is to inspire Christians to be thinkers. Well, guess what? We don't do that alone or in isolation. One of the programs where I get notified every single day as soon as it begins broadcasting is Point of View Radio Broadcast with Kerby Anderson. It is on my must-watch dial every single day. Why? Because I get updated on the most important commentary of the day, and I get it from a biblical perspective. And so it has my unqualified endorsement. I would encourage you, if you've not checked out Point of View, to definitely look at their archived broadcasts. But do what I did. Click that notification so that you get notified every time they come on air, so you can watch it. I even have it in the background sometimes when I'm researching. It is a great resource.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Dr. Jeremiah Johnston says, you might want to get the notification, and that's one way. Of course, oftentimes I get a notification that a YouTube video has been posted, and also another benefit, which you might have heard right now, is Penna Dexter's commentary, which you can receive. But here, I think it's a good illustration because you mentioned Planned Parenthood, and Planned Parenthood in Pennsylvania tweeted, "We need a Disney princess who's had an abortion. We need a Disney princess who's pro-choice. We need a Disney princess who's an undocumented immigrant. We need a Disney princess who's actually a union worker. We need a Disney princess who's transgender." We're not making this up, are we, Penna?
No, and on the abortion issue, it's like it's trying to legitimize or just kind of soften the sin there. And Planned Parenthood does that in so many ways. And now that commentary that you just mentioned, we talk about how there is a push by Planned Parenthood along with Human Rights Campaign and the ACLU to get, they've actually written model legislation for the states to get this curriculum that's so graphic about ways to prevent pregnancy but still have sex, basically, and teach kids this throughout the nation. And there's actually going to be later this month a sit-in by the parents who object to this that's being called for throughout the nation. So that's what I put in my commentary. Planned Parenthood is still funded by federal dollars, amazingly or not. They say it doesn't go toward abortion, but as we know, money is fungible. And it's a force for evil in this country, and it just doesn't seem to want to go away.
Jeremy, this is one of the reasons why you said, maybe I need to educate my kids at home.
That's part of it for sure. And I tell you, it's good evidence of why we're having these discussions, too. These are important things for us to consider, for us to think about. Where else do you have these kinds of discussions? But my word, if it's good for them to have revealed them for what they actually are here. They want to see what's implicit in this. Just don't miss this. They want to see more children die. I mean, that's what's going on here. In fact, they would rather see no more princesses go through Disney World. They'd rather see them actually die rather than become princesses here. They want to eliminate these princesses, and that is a tragic loss. But this is why you need to stop and think about what it is you believe and how would you respond to this. If someone came up to you or you saw this on social media, how do you respond to this? By just saying, oh, no, it's bad. That's not the right thing to say. You've got to actually go out there now and convince someone about it.
Well, again, one of the benefits of joining with us and certainly even signing up to get the commentaries, my commentary comes out in your inbox Monday through Friday, Penna Dexter's on Saturday. But again, we post these kinds of articles.
We do.
And again, sometimes you'll say this to somebody and they'll say, "You have got to be kidding. This has got to be the fake news. It's got to be the Onion. It's got to be Saturday Night Live." So many times when Kelly Shackelford comes in here, I'm going, if it weren't you, Kelly, I'd think you were making this up. And so this is why we post these articles, right?
It is. And that's part of the service we want to offer to you and have been offering to you for 45 plus years, day in and day out, bringing you information, being a voice where there is no other voice many times. Point of view, and be a part of the team. Won't you right now? Our final moments of our pledge of our Truth Team Week is happening right now. 800-347-5151. We have $10,230 to go, and we'll have it wrapped up. So it's just everybody going to the phones right now. 800-347-5151.
Listen, I can't stand leaving money on the table. And, I'm looking at these numbers, Brad, $10,230, and we've got to get those pledges and those gifts before the end of the hour. So I decided to dig deep, and I just made a gift of $500 to Point of View. And I just want to encourage you. I mean, that's doubled now. That's $1,000.
That's right.
I want to encourage folks right now to do what I did. I mean, we've got to get this done in this next segment. We just got to get it done.
We actually have several people. I didn't read their names, but they are already monthly givers. They called today and added a single gift on top. So they're kind of call them double dippers. They're in there. They're giving monthly. They're giving single gifts. And you're right. And every dollar counts because it makes a difference for eternity. We are all about a biblical worldview.
Jeremy, let me come to you for just a minute because, you are so nice. And as well as Chelsea, as well as all sorts of other individuals from First Liberty coming over here all the time, coming in here. You've got a lot to do, and Kelly Shackelford certainly has a lot he could be doing on Fridays, and Chelsea Human certainly has a lot she could be doing. You have a lot you could be doing, but you always send people over here, and you're so nice to do that. Why?
Well, first, because we like to finally have someone call us nice. I mean, as attorneys, no one tends to do that very often. So
I love it.
If nothing else, just to be called nice once in a while is a nice reason to come over here. But no, the greater important reason on that, and the serious reason, is that we're committed to being here for Point of View because we need to tell this story about religious liberty. We need to have these discussions broadly. And we're looking at literally millions of people that are going to hear this broadcast and next week Kelly's broadcast when he's on here, when Chelsea's here. To hear people, to have people hear the discussions that are going on, to force them to think through these issues as they drive down the street or sit in that parking lot or listen to it on their computer or iPod or what have you. These are important things for us to be doing. And most importantly, the reason we come on here is not only to tell those stories, but to give some people some hope as well. To say, hey, look, if you're facing this issue, number one, we want you to know what your rights actually are so that you can be aware when they're violated. But we want you to know that you're not without hope. If you will call us, if we can talk with you, if we can take on your case, we can represent you. And 90% of the time, we're going to win those cases, and we're going to do it without ever sending you a bill. We do it for free. So it's important for us to make sure that that kids and parents and those that are in the public square, those that are in the military, that they know what their religious liberty rights are, that they're exercising them, and that if they ever go up against a problem, they find themselves in facing a problem with their religious liberty, they know who to call. Point of View gives us that ability to do that.
Well, again, we appreciate them coming over here.
We do. Thank you.
They voted with their feet in their pocketbooks and everything else today. So, Brad, we've got about a minute left, and even though we go off the air, you can still call. We'll take some of those calls, and you obviously can go to pointofview.net. But what would you say in this last minute or so that we have left?
Hey, I would say, would you please pray for us? Pray that people and more people will get the vision of joining the financial team of Point of View. We've been around for over 45 years. We're planning to be around for the next 45 years. And the phone number to call right now and get in, and like you said, the phone room will be open for a while, 1-800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151. Remember, there's about $10,000 still out there in that match challenge at risk. So we just ask you to give your very best gift, won't you? And thank you in advance. 800-347-5151. Well,
Penna, thank you for your willingness to give a gift. And Jeremy, thank you for coming over here and being such a nice guy. We appreciate it.
You say it again for you.
Yes. We are out of time, so let me just again encourage you to call 800-347-5151. And Brad, most importantly, thank you for spending a week with us.
And thank you for letting me spend a week with you. It's been a blast as usual. God bless you.
Again, we will keep those phone lines open a little bit longer, but we're going off the air. So again, 800-347-5151. Some of you over the weekend may want to come on the program, and you could leave a voicemail, but the other way to do it is simply to go to the website, pointofview.net. We got a great program for you next week. We'll see you back here after the weekend, right here on Point of View.
You know the need. Change is within reach. Reach out and seize the moment. As former White House official Gary Bauer can say from experience, what we do here, you and Point of View, makes a difference.
In my time in government, when Point of View provided people with a phone number or an address or a way to communicate to the powerful people here in Washington, D.C., the effect was incredible, and it was immediate.
You can create real and lasting change. For a few more hours, we have a $25,000 challenge. Your commitment to the Truth Team, whatever amount, will be doubled up to that number. Stretch a bit. Make change happen.
Either people of faith will take action and defend their values, or the playing field's going to be left to those that have quite a different agenda.
Get in the game before time runs out. Call 800-347-5151 or visit pointofview.net/team. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and it